Your future changes the moment you stop waiting for it to arrive. Let me tell you something that might shake you a little, and I mean this with all the love in my heart. You are standing at the edge of a completely different life right now, not tomorrow. Not when you get that job, not when you meet that person, not when the conditions are perfect. Right now. But there is one thing, one invisible habit, one silent pattern that is keeping you locked exactly where you are, replaying the same experiences, meeting the same struggles, wearing different masks, wondering why nothing ever really changes, even though you keep trying so hard. I want you to stop for just a moment. Take a breath with me, because what I am about to share with you is not theory. This is not philosophy floating somewhere in the clouds. This is the actual mechanism, the living principle that governs how your life unfolds. And once you see it, once you really understand what you have been doing, you cannot unsee it. Your entire life will split into before and after this moment. You see, most people spend their whole lives waiting for permission, waiting for proof, waiting for circumstances to change first before they allow themselves to change. And this waiting, this seemingly innocent habit of postponing your inner transformation until the outer world gives you a reason, this is the invisible wall between you and everything you have ever wanted. I have watched this pattern destroy dreams. I have seen brilliant, beautiful souls sit year after year in the same pain, the same limitation, the same story, not because they lack power, not because the universe was against them, but because they kept doing this one thing. They kept waiting for their future to give them permission to feel differently today. And here is what breaks my heart. You already have everything you need, right now. The power that creates worlds is flowing through you as you hear these words. But you have been taught to look outside yourself for evidence before you claim what is already yours. You have been conditioned to believe that feeling comes after getting, that confidence comes after success, that worthiness comes after achievement. And this backwards approach is precisely why your future keeps looking like your past. Let me be very clear about something. The moment you stop doing this one thing, everything shifts. Not because the world suddenly becomes magical, not because obstacles disappear, but because you finally step into the truth of who you actually are and how this universe actually works. You stop being a reactor and become a creator. You stop begging and start claiming. You stop hoping and start knowing. Your future is not a distant destination you must travel to. It is being created right here, in the invisible workshop of your consciousness, with every thought you think, every feeling you entertain, every assumption you hold as true. And the reason your future has been looking so much like your past is because you have been bringing your past into this present moment, and then projecting it forward, calling it your future. Listen closely. What you are about to learn is going to change everything. Not because I have some secret that was hidden from you, but because I am going to show you what you have been doing unconsciously, and once it becomes conscious, you gain the power to change it. And when you change this one thing, your entire life reorganizes itself around the new pattern. This is not about positive thinking. This is not about pretending or denying reality. This is about understanding the actual creative process, the real mechanics of manifestation, and finally stopping the one habit that has been sabotaging everything you have ever tried to build. Are you ready? Because there is no going back once you see this. Your old excuses will not work anymore. Your old stories will lose their power, and you will be faced with a choice, the most important choice of your life. To keep doing what you have always done, or to step into something so much bigger than you have allowed yourself to imagine. Let me show you what I mean. Let me take you by the hand and walk you through this until it becomes so clear that you will wonder how you never saw it before. Everything is about to make sense. Every failure, every disappointment, every time you felt like you were doing everything right but still not getting anywhere, it is all about to click into place. Because you have been stopping your future from arriving by doing this one thing, over and over, without even realizing it. And today, right now, that ends. Now let me tell you why this matters more than anything else you will hear today. Your future is not written in stone, it is not predetermined by your past. It is not controlled by other people or circumstances, or the economy, or your age, or your education, or anything outside of you. I know you have been told otherwise. I know the world has spent years convincing you that you are small, that you are limited, that you need to wait for the right moment, or the right person, or the right opportunity. But I am here to tell you something different, something true, something that will set you free if you let it. Your future is being created right now by what you are assuming to be true about yourself and your life, not by what you hope, not by what you want, not by what you wish or dream or pray for in those desperate moments when everything feels too hard. Your future is being formed by what you actually believe, deep down, beneath all the surface thoughts and affirmations and positive statements. And here is where it gets interesting. Here is where most people stumble without even knowing it. You say you want something different. You set goals, you make plans, you take action. But underneath all of that activity, you are still assuming the same old things about yourself. You are still carrying the same old identity. You are still feeling the same old feelings. And then you wonder why nothing changes, why the future that arrives looks so disappointingly familiar. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine someone who desperately wants to be successful. They read all the books. They follow all the advice. They work harder than everyone around them. But every morning when they wake up, they feel the same anxiety. They look in the mirror and see the same person who has always struggled. They go through their day with the same tight feeling in their chest, the same worry about money, the same fear of failure. They are taking action towards success while simultaneously holding the feeling of someone who fails. Do you see the contradiction? Do you see the invisible wall they have built? They are trying to create a new future while emotionally living in their old one. And this right here is what you must stop doing. This is the pattern that keeps your future locked in place, that makes it look like nothing ever really changes, no matter how hard you try. You cannot create a new future from an old feeling. You cannot manifest abundance while feeling poor. You cannot attract love while feeling unworthy. You cannot become successful while carrying the emotional signature of failure. It does not work that way. It has never worked that way. And it will never work that way, no matter how many techniques you learn or how many times you repeat your affirmations. The universe does not respond to your words. It does not care about your goals written in a journal. It responds to your state of being. It responds to what you are feeling, what you are assuming, what you are broadcasting through every cell of your body as your truth. And this is where everything changes. This is where you finally gain power, because you can change your state right now. Not tomorrow, not when something happens, right now. In this very moment, you can choose to stop emotionally living in your past and start feeling your way into your future. This is what I mean when I say your future changes when you stop doing this. Stop waiting for circumstances to change before you change how you feel. Stop holding yourself hostage to conditions. Stop saying, I will be happy when. I will feel confident when. I will relax when. That when is a prison. That when is the thing keeping you trapped. Your future self, the version of you that has everything you want, who lives the life you dream about, that version exists right now in potential. And the only way to bring that future into your present reality is to become that person now. To feel how that person feels. To assume what that person assumes. To walk through your day with the inner certainty that it is already done. I know this sounds simple. Maybe too simple. And that is exactly why most people miss it. They are looking for something more complicated, some hidden secret, some special technique. But the truth is always simple. The truth is that you are creating your future right now with your inner state, and if you want a different future, you must cultivate a different state. Not later, not when you have proof, not when it makes sense. Now, this is the decision that changes everything. This is the moment your future splits off from your past and becomes something new. Are you beginning to see it? Are you beginning to feel the power of this? Because once you really get this, once it sinks in deep, you will never be the same. You will walk differently. You will speak differently. You will move through the world with a quiet knowing that everything is already working in your favor because you have claimed it internally first. Let me tell you a story. There was a man who came to see me years ago, and I will never forget the look in his eyes. He was defeated, completely worn down by life. He had been trying to build a business for 5 years, and every time he got close to success, something would fall apart, a partner would leave, a deal would collapse, money would run out. He kept hitting the same wall over and over, and he could not understand why. So I asked him a simple question. I said, when you wake up in the morning, before you even get out of bed, what do you feel? He looked at me confused, like that was not the right question. He wanted to talk about strategies and marketing and all the external things, but I waited. And finally he admitted it. He said, I feel dread. I feel afraid that today is going to be another day of disappointment. I feel tired before the day even begins. Do you see what was happening? This man was waking up every single morning and clothing himself in the feeling of failure. He was emotionally rehearsing disappointment before anything even happened. And then he would go out into the world, taking action, working hard, doing all the right things externally, but carrying this feeling internally. And the universe kept giving him experiences that matched that feeling. He was not failing because he lacked skill. He was not failing because he lacked effort. He was failing because he was emotionally committed to the feeling of someone who fails. That was his state. That was what he was broadcasting. And life kept confirming it. So I taught him what I am teaching you now. I said, you must stop waiting for success to make you feel successful. You must feel successful now, before you have evidence, before it makes sense, before anyone believes in you. You must wake up every morning and deliberately choose the feeling of someone whose business is thriving, not as pretending, not as fantasy, but as a deep inner knowing, a claim, an assumption that this is who you are now. He thought I was crazy at first. He said, but how can I feel successful when I am broke? How can I feel like my business is thriving when I am struggling to pay rent? And I told him what I am telling you. You do not need conditions to change in order to change your state. You change your state first, and then conditions rearrange themselves to match. This is the order. This is the law. State first, then manifestation. Inner first, then outer. Always. He decided to try it. Every morning before getting out of bed, he would lie there and feel himself into the state of a successful businessman. Not thinking about it, not visualizing it, feeling it. He would ask himself, how would I feel if my business was already thriving? What would that feel like in my body? And he would stay with that feeling until it became real for him, until it saturated his consciousness. Then he would get up and go about his day from that state, not from anxiety, not from fear, not from the old feeling of struggle, but from this new assumption, this new feeling of someone whose success is certain. Within 3 months, everything changed. And I mean everything. Opportunities showed up that he could not have planned for. People came into his life at exactly the right time. Doors opened that had been closed for years. His business did not just survive, it exploded. But here is what is important to understand. The opportunities were always there. The people were always around. The doors were always available. What changed was him. His state changed, and suddenly he could see what had been invisible to him before. He could receive what had been trying to reach him all along. This is not magic. This is law. This is how consciousness works. You do not attract what you want. You attract what you are. You attract what you assume to be true. You attract what matches your inner state. And if you are walking around feeling lack, feeling fear, feeling unworthy, feeling like someone who struggles, then that is what you will continue to experience. Not because the universe is punishing you, not because you are unlucky, but because you are creating from that state. You are broadcasting that frequency. And life is simply responding with matching experiences. This is why I say your future changes when you stop doing this. Stop waiting for your external circumstances to give you permission to feel differently. Stop making your inner state dependent on outer conditions. Stop postponing the feeling until you get the thing. Reverse the order. Feel first. Be first. Assume first. And then watch as your external world rearranges itself to reflect your new inner reality. I have seen this happen not once, not twice, but thousands of times in the lives of ordinary people who discovered this extraordinary secret. Let me tell you about a woman I worked with years ago. She came to me drowning in debt, her business failing, creditors calling daily. The stress was literally making her sick. She would wake up every morning with that heavy feeling in her chest, immediately thinking about all the bills she couldn't pay, all the problems mounting around her. I asked her one simple question. What would it feel like if money flowed to you effortlessly? She looked at me like I was insane. But it doesn't, she said. That's the problem. I didn't ask what I told her. I asked what it would feel like if it did. She closed her eyes. For the first time in months, she allowed herself to imagine abundance instead of lack. She felt the relief, the freedom, the lightness in her chest. She imagined checking her bank account and smiling instead of wincing. I instructed her to return to that feeling every single day. Not to worry about how the money would come, not to create elaborate plans, just to assume the feeling of wealth already being hers. Within 3 weeks, an old client she hadn't heard from in 2 years contacted her with a major project. Within 2 months, she had more work than she could handle. Within 6 months, she had completely turned her business around. What changed? Not her skills, not the economy, not her circumstances. Her assumption changed. And when her assumption changed, her entire reality reorganized itself to match. This is not magic. This is not wishful thinking. This is law, as absolute as gravity. Your subconscious mind does not argue with you. It does not question whether your assumption is true or false. It simply accepts what you persistently feel to be true and proceeds to create circumstances that match that inner conviction. Most people have this backwards. They wait for circumstances to change so they can feel differently. But that is not how creation works. You must feel differently first. You must assume the state first. You must claim the feeling of the wish fulfilled before you see any evidence of it in your world. This is where most people stumble. They say, "I'll believe it when I see it." But you must reverse that. You must believe it so that you can see it. You must feel wealthy before wealth appears. You must feel loved before love manifests. You must feel healthy before the body reflects health. Your consciousness is the only reality. Everything else is a shadow, a reflection of what is taking place within you. When you change the inner conviction, the outer world has no choice but to rearrange itself accordingly. Think of it this way. If you want warmth in a cold room, do you go to the thermometer and try to push the mercury up with your finger? Of course not. That would be insane. You go to the source. You light the fire. You turn on the heat. And then the thermometer rises naturally, automatically, without effort. The same principle applies to your life. You cannot change the reflection by attacking the mirror. You must change yourself. You must change your inner temperature, your inner conviction, your inner assumption. And when you do, the outer world will conform. It must. It's law. I've watched people struggle for years trying to manipulate circumstances, trying to force outcomes, trying to control every detail of their external world. They exhaust themselves. They become frustrated, bitter, resentful, and still nothing changes. But the moment they turn within, the moment they stop trying to change the world and start changing their consciousness, everything shifts. Sometimes gradually, sometimes overnight, but it always shifts. Your subconscious mind doesn't distinguish between a real experience and one vividly imagined with feeling. This is crucial. If you can make your imaginal act feel real, your subconscious accepts it as real. And once accepted, it begins to externalize that reality into your three-dimensional world. This is why feeling is the secret, not thinking, not wishing, not hoping, feeling. The feeling of the wish fulfilled is the fertile soil in which all desires are planted and from which they grow. You can think about wealth all day long. You can make lists, vision boards, affirmations. But if you still feel poor, if you still feel lack, if you still worry about money, those feelings are what's being impressed upon your subconscious. And those feelings are what will manifest. Your subconscious doesn't argue with you. It doesn't analyze whether what you're feeding it is true or false, good or bad, helpful or harmful. It simply accepts. It's like soil. Soil doesn't judge the seed. You can plant a rose or poison ivy, and the soil will grow either one with equal commitment. The soil doesn't say, "Wait, this is a bad seed, I won't let it grow." It simply responds to what's planted. This is why you must become brutally honest with yourself about what you're actually feeling. Not what you think you should feel. Not what spiritual teachers told you to feel. Not what you pretend to feel when someone asks how you're doing. But what you genuinely feel in the quiet moments when nobody's watching. Because here's what most people don't realize. You can fool your conscious mind. You can rationalize. You can justify. You can create elaborate stories about why things are the way they are. But you cannot fool your subconscious mind. It knows. It feels everything you genuinely feel. Every doubt, every fear, every moment of unworthiness. And it's responding to that truth, not to the lies you tell yourself. I'll give you a perfect example. I knew someone who wanted to start a business. He read all the books, took all the courses, created the business plan. He did affirmations every morning. I am a successful entrepreneur. Money flows to me easily. But every time an opportunity came to actually invest money into his business, to take a real risk, he would freeze. He would find reasons why it wasn't the right time, why he needed to save more first, why the market wasn't ready, what was happening. His conscious mind wanted success, but his subconscious mind was programmed with fear. Fear of failure, fear of losing money, fear of what people would think if he failed, and that fear was stronger than his affirmations. So his subconscious created circumstances that matched his fear. Opportunities disappeared. Timing never seemed right. Obstacles appeared everywhere. Until one day, he stopped fighting it. He stopped pretending. He said, "I'm afraid. I'm terrified of losing everything. I'm scared of being judged." And something shifted. Because in that moment of honesty, he could finally address the real issue. Not the surface desire for success, but the deep feeling of fear that was running his life. This is the work that most people never do. They keep chasing the next technique, the next manifestation method, the next guru who promises them the shortcut. But there is no shortcut to self-honesty. There is no hack for knowing yourself. And here's what I've discovered. Your subconscious mind doesn't care about your goals. It doesn't care about your vision board or your affirmations or how badly you want something. Your subconscious mind only cares about keeping you safe. And if deep down, you believe that success means losing your friends, that money makes you a bad person, that being visible means being attacked, your subconscious will sabotage every conscious effort you make. This is why people work so hard and get nowhere. This is why intelligent, capable, talented people stay stuck for decades. Not because they're lazy, not because they don't want it enough, but because there's a part of them, hidden beneath the surface, that is fighting against their own desires. I worked with a woman who wanted to lose weight. She'd tried every diet, every exercise program, every supplement on the market. Nothing worked. Or rather, things would work temporarily, and then she'd gain it all back. And when we finally got honest about what was really going on, she said something that shocked even her. "When I was thin, my husband cheated on me." She'd been carrying that belief for 15 years. Unconsciously, she believed that being overweight was her protection. Her subconscious mind was keeping her safe the only way it knew how. And no amount of willpower or discipline could override that deeply embedded programming. Once she saw it, once she brought it into the light and challenged that belief, everything changed. Not overnight, but genuinely changed. Because she was finally working with her subconscious instead of against it. This is the invisible architecture of your life. These hidden beliefs, these unconscious programs, they're running the show. And until you become aware of them, until you shine a light into those dark corners, you'll keep hitting the same walls over and over again, wondering why nothing changes. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Your subconscious mind doesn't judge. It doesn't evaluate whether something is good for you or bad for you. It doesn't care if a belief serves you or destroys you. It simply accepts. It's like the most faithful servant you could ever have, but one that follows orders without question, without hesitation, without discernment. You tell it, "I'm not good enough," and it says, "Yes, master. Let me prove that to you." You tell it, "Money is hard to come by," and it responds, "Absolutely. Let me show you how difficult it can be." You whisper, "I always mess things up," and it immediately gets to work arranging circumstances to validate that belief. This is both the tragedy and the opportunity of human consciousness. Because if your subconscious mind accepts negative programming without judgment, it also accepts positive programming the same way. It doesn't know the difference between a limiting belief and an empowering one. It simply takes whatever you consistently feed it and makes it real in your experience. Think about someone who grew up being told they were smart, capable, destined for great things. Not in a way that created pressure or unrealistic expectations, but in a way that installed a deep knowing, a fundamental assumption about who they are. That person moves through the world differently. When they encounter obstacles, their subconscious doesn't interpret it as evidence of their inadequacy. Instead, it sees it as a temporary challenge, a puzzle to be solved, a stepping stone to the success that their inner programming tells them is inevitable. Same obstacle, same external circumstance, completely different internal response. And that internal response changes everything. It changes how long they persist. It changes what opportunities they notice. It changes how other people respond to them. Their confidence isn't arrogance or pretense. It's simply the natural expression of their subconscious programming. Now, here's what I need you to understand, with absolute clarity. That person isn't more deserving than you. They weren't born with special gifts that you lack. They simply had different seeds planted in the garden of their subconscious mind. And the beautiful, liberating truth is this: you can plant new seeds. You can overwrite the old programming. You can reprogram your subconscious mind deliberately, intentionally, systematically. But here's the catch: you can't do it with logic alone. You can't simply think your way into new beliefs. You have to feel your way there. You have to emotionally experience the new reality before it manifests in your physical world. This is where most people stumble. They affirm something half-heartedly while their heart is screaming the opposite. They say, "I am prosperous," while feeling broke. They declare, "I am loved," while aching with loneliness. And the subconscious? It doesn't listen to your words. It responds to your feelings. So how do you bridge that gap? How do you convince your subconscious of something that isn't yet visible in your life? You do it through what Murphy called the state akin to sleep. That drowsy state right before you drift off, when your conscious mind loosens its grip and your subconscious becomes highly receptive. In that state, you don't argue, you don't debate, you don't question, you simply assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled. Let's say you want financial freedom. Before sleep, you don't visualize money piling up. That's too abstract. Instead, you feel the times relief asterisk, the ease, the calm knowing that your bills are paid, that you can be generous, that you're no longer anxious about the future. You sink into that feeling. You wrap yourself in it like a warm blanket, and you fall asleep in that state. Night after night, you do this. And gradually, imperceptibly, your subconscious begins to accept this new feeling as true. It stops resisting. It stops contradicting. And then something magical happens. Your outer world begins to rearrange itself to match your inner conviction. Opportunities appear, ideas strike, people reach out, doors open, not because you forced anything, but because you changed the signal you were broadcasting. You became a different person on the inside, so the outside had no choice but to reflect that. This isn't magic, it's mechanics. It's how the mind works. It's how reality responds to consciousness. But it requires patience. It requires consistency. It requires you to be gentle with yourself when doubt creeps back in, because it will. The old beliefs don't disappear overnight. They'll whisper. They'll try to reclaim their territory. And when they do, you don't fight them. You simply redirect your attention back to the feeling of the wish fulfilled. This is the secret that changes everything. The old thought comes back? Fine. Notice it. Don't make it significant. Don't give it a spotlight and a microphone. Simply say, "That's interesting," and return to the feeling of your wish fulfilled. It's like training a puppy. The puppy wanders off. You don't beat it. You don't shame it. You gently guide it back to where it belongs. And here's what most people miss. The returning to the wish fulfilled gets easier each time. The neural pathway you're creating becomes stronger with each repetition. The old pathway gets weaker from lack of use. It's literally brain science wrapped in spiritual truth. Every time you redirect your attention, you're casting another vote for the new reality. You're building momentum in the direction of your desire. Think of it like this. Imagine there's a river flowing in one direction, the direction of your old story. Now you want that river to flow in a new direction toward your wish fulfilled. You can't just dam up the old river and expect instant change. The water has momentum, it has force. But you can dig a new channel, and every time you persist in the new direction, you deepen that channel. Eventually, the water naturally flows where you've directed it. The old riverbed dries up. This is what happens in your consciousness. I've watched this transformation happen countless times. People come to me stuck in decades-old patterns, financial lack, relationship struggles, health challenges, and they all say the same thing: "I've tried everything." But when I dig deeper, I discover they haven't tried persistence. They've tried hoping. They've tried wishing. They've tried a week of affirmations before giving up. But they haven't understood that persistence isn't about time, it's about frequency of return. You could spend 10 years thinking about your desire once a month, and it would be less powerful than spending 1 month returning to it 10 times a day. The subconscious mind doesn't recognize the calendar. It recognizes patterns of attention. It recognizes where your consciousness habitually returns. Think of it like this. If you want to carve a message into stone, you don't need to strike once with tremendous force. You need to strike repeatedly with consistent pressure. The Grand Canyon wasn't formed by a single cataclysmic event. It was formed by water flowing through the same path, day after day, year after year, for millions of years. Your subconscious is being carved right now. The question is, what message are you carving into it? Most people are unconsciously carving messages of limitation, fear, and lack, simply because those are the thoughts they return to most frequently. They check their bank account 10 times a day with anxiety. They replay past failures in their mind before falling asleep. They rehearse arguments that haven't happened yet. And then they wonder why these patterns keep showing up in their external reality. But when you understand this principle, everything changes. You realize that you don't need to feel inspired every moment of the day. You don't need to maintain some impossible standard of constant positivity. You simply need to return again and again to the feeling of your wish fulfilled. Let me share something that changed my entire understanding of this work. I once worked with a man who was trying to overcome a chronic health condition. He would do his mental work faithfully every morning: visualization, affirmation, feeling. But the rest of his day was consumed with worry, research into his symptoms, and conversations with others about his illness. I asked him a simple question: how many times today did you return to the feeling of health, versus how many times did you return to the feeling of illness? He was stunned into silence. He realized that while he was spending 20 minutes a day on his desired state, he was spending 8 hours reinforcing the opposite. The ratio was completely inverted. So we made one simple change. Instead of trying to do longer sessions, he set an alarm on his phone to go off every 2 hours. When it rang, he would pause for just 30 seconds, sometimes less, and return to the feeling of perfect health. Just a brief moment, a conscious return. Within 3 months, his condition had transformed completely. His doctors called it spontaneous remission. But it wasn't spontaneous at all. It was the natural result of shifting the balance of his attention. His mind had been feeding one wolf for so long, the wolf of fear, of decline, of inevitable deterioration. And that wolf had grown strong enough to manifest in his physical body. But when he consciously chose to feed the other wolf, the wolf of possibility, of healing, of renewal, everything changed. And here's what most people miss about this process. You don't need to completely eliminate the negative wolf. That's not how this works. You just need to consistently feed the positive one more. Think of it like this. Imagine your subconscious mind is a garden. Right now, you probably have some weeds growing there, thoughts of limitation, memories of past failures, beliefs that were planted by someone else's fear or judgment. Those weeds didn't appear overnight. They've been there a while. Their roots have grown deep. Now, most people approach this garden with violence. They try to rip out every weed, to excavate every root, to create perfect soil before they plant anything positive. And what happens? They exhaust themselves in the struggle. They focus so intensely on what they don't want that they actually water those very weeds with their attention. But the wise gardener takes a different approach. She doesn't ignore the weeds, she acknowledges them. But then she does something remarkable. She begins planting seeds of what she wants. She waters those seeds daily. She gives them sunlight, nutrients, attention. And gradually, over time, the flowers and vegetables she's cultivating grow so abundant that they crowd out the weeds naturally. The weeds don't disappear because she fought them. They disappear because she stopped feeding them. This is the secret that changed my life, and it's the secret that can change yours. Your subconscious mind will grow whatever you consistently feed it. Feed it fear, and you'll harvest anxiety. Feed it limitation, and you'll harvest struggle. But feed it possibility, feed it images of your desired outcome, feelings of gratitude as if your wish is already fulfilled, faith that what you seek is seeking you, and watch what begins to bloom. I remember working with a woman who had been unemployed for 18 months. She came to me exhausted, defeated, her resume rejected so many times she'd stopped counting. But here's what shifted everything for her. She stopped planting seeds of rejection and started planting seeds of celebration. Every morning, before even getting out of bed, she would close her eyes and feel the handshake of her new employer. She'd imagine the weight of the contract in her hands, the relief washing over her as she signed it, the text messages she'd send to loved ones saying, "I got it." She didn't just visualize the job, she felt the emotional reality of already having it. Within 3 weeks, a former colleague reached out about an opening. Within 5 weeks, she had the offer. Was it coincidence? Maybe. Or maybe she finally stopped watering weeds and started watering her garden. Your subconscious doesn't judge the seeds you plant, it simply grows whatever you consistently give it. And here's the humbling part. Most of us are master gardeners of our own misery. We plant worry every morning with our first anxious thought. We water doubt with every what-if scenario we rehearse. We fertilize fear by replaying past failures as if they're prophecies of the future. But you can change the crop, right now, this moment. You don't need permission, a guru, or perfect conditions. You just need to decide what you're planting today. Because 6 months from now, you're going to harvest something. The only question is what? Will it be the fruit of fear or the fruit of faith? Will you reap anxiety or abundance? The choice, my friend, has always been yours. Your subconscious is listening. It's been listening your whole life. And it will keep listening, keep building, keep creating, whether you're conscious of what you're feeding it or not. So feed it well. Feed it truth. Feed it possibility. Because your subconscious mind doesn't judge. It doesn't argue. It simply accepts and executes. When you plant a seed of doubt, it grows doubt. When you plant a seed of faith, it grows miracles. This is why affirmations work. Not because they're magic words, but because they're deliberate instructions to the most powerful creative force in your life. When you say, I am prosperous, you're not lying to yourself. You're programming yourself. You're giving your subconscious mind a blueprint to follow. But here's where most people stumble. They say the words, but they don't feel them. They affirm abundance while their stomach churns with anxiety. They declare confidence while their body language screams insecurity. And then they wonder why nothing changes. The subconscious responds to feeling, not just words. It responds to the emotional charge behind your thoughts. This is why a worry repeated with intensity manifests faster than an affirmation spoken half-heartedly. Your fear has conviction. Your hope has doubt attached to it. So when you affirm, you must feel it as already true. Not as something you're desperately chasing, but as something you're gratefully acknowledging. There's a difference between I want to be successful and I am successful. One is begging, the other is claiming. Your subconscious mind knows the difference. It reads the energy beneath the words. It feels the truth of your conviction. And it mirrors back to you exactly what you've impressed upon it. Think of someone learning to ride a bicycle. At first, every movement is conscious, deliberate, awkward. The mind says balance, pedal, steer, with every motion. But eventually, something shifts. The conscious effort fades. The body just knows. The subconscious has learned the pattern, and now riding becomes effortless, automatic, natural. Your beliefs work the same way. Repeat them with feeling, with conviction, with consistency, and they become automatic. They become your new normal. Your subconscious accepts them as fact and begins arranging your reality to match them. This is how people transform their lives. Not through willpower alone, not through grinding and forcing, but through the gentle, persistent reprogramming of the subconscious mind, through choosing better thoughts, through feeling better feelings, through impressing upon that fertile soil the seeds of the life they truly desire. And you must understand this is not about denying reality. This is not about pretending that challenges don't exist or that circumstances don't matter. It's about recognizing that your inner state creates the lens through which you experience those circumstances. Two people can go through the exact same event, the exact same loss, the exact same setback, the exact same disappointment. One emerges broken, convinced the world is against them, that nothing ever works out. The other emerges stronger, having found meaning in the struggle, having discovered resources within themselves they never knew existed. What made the difference? Not the event itself, but the interpretation, the inner narrative, the thoughts they chose to accept, and the feelings they chose to cultivate. Your subconscious mind doesn't argue with you. It doesn't question whether your thoughts are true or false, helpful or harmful. It simply accepts what you impress upon it with feeling and conviction. If you constantly tell yourself, I'm not good enough, your subconscious will find ways to make that true in your experience. If you repeatedly affirm, everything works out for my highest good, your subconscious will guide you towards circumstances that validate that belief. This is why Murphy emphasized feeling so deeply. Because thoughts alone, empty affirmations spoken without emotion, carry little power. But thoughts infused with feeling, thoughts married to vivid imagination, thoughts saturated with conviction, These penetrate the subconscious mind like seeds breaking through soil. Think of it this way. You can say, "I am confident," 1,000 times, but if underneath those words you feel anxious, doubtful, small, what impression are you truly making? The feeling is the secret ingredient. The feeling is what gives your thought the weight, the gravity, the creative power to manifest in your outer world. And here's something beautiful that Murphy discovered through years of study and practice. You don't have to wait for circumstances to change before you can feel differently. You can generate the feeling first. You can close your eyes right now and imagine yourself already living the life you desire. You can feel the satisfaction, the joy, the peace, the fulfillment. And as you do, you're impressing those feelings upon your subconscious mind. You're programming it with a new pattern. You're planting seeds that will, in time, produce a harvest in your physical reality. This is not something you do once and forget. This is a daily practice, a sacred ritual of the mind. Every single day, you must return to this inner sanctuary. Every single morning and every single night, you must spend time in that state of feeling, in that state of grateful acceptance of your desire fulfilled. And here's what most people miss. Consistency is more powerful than intensity. It's better to spend 10 focused minutes every day in this state than to spend 3 hours once a week. Why? Because repetition is the mother of all learning. Your subconscious mind learns through repetition. It learns through the steady, persistent impression of the same feeling, the same idea, the same conviction. Think of it like watering a garden. You don't dump 100 gallons of water on your plants once a month and expect them to thrive. You water them a little bit every day. You give them steady, consistent nourishment. And that's exactly what you're doing with your subconscious mind. You're nourishing it daily with the feeling of your wish fulfilled. Now, as you continue this practice, something remarkable begins to happen. Your outer world starts to shift. Not all at once, not in some dramatic explosion, but gradually, naturally, as though the universe itself is rearranging to match your inner conviction. You'll notice small things first. Opportunities that seem to appear out of nowhere. Conversations that lead in unexpected directions. People who enter your life at exactly the right moment. Resources that become available just when you need them. These aren't coincidences. These are the natural consequences of your changed inner state. Your subconscious mind is infinitely connected to all of life. When you impress it with a desire, it begins to orchestrate circumstances, events, and relationships that align with that desire. It works through what some call synchronicity, what others call divine guidance, but what is really just the natural law of mind in action. You don't need to figure out the how. You don't need to manipulate or force or scheme. Your job is simply to maintain the feeling, to persist in the assumption that your desire is already fulfilled. The how will take care of itself. The path will reveal itself, step by step as you walk it. Let me share with you a profound truth that changed everything for me. When you truly understand this principle, when you really get it at a cellular level, you'll never approach manifestation the same way again. You are not trying to convince the universe of anything. You are not attempting to manipulate reality into giving you what you want. That's the old paradigm, the desperate energy that actually repels what you desire. Instead, you're aligning yourself with a reality that already exists in the infinite field of possibility. You're tuning your frequency to match the station that's already broadcasting your fulfilled desire. Think of it like this. Right now, in this very moment, there are countless radio signals passing through the space where you're sitting. Music, news, podcasts, all simultaneously existing in the air around you. You can't see them, you can't touch them, but they're absolutely real. When you turn on a radio and tune to a specific frequency, you're not creating that broadcast. You're simply aligning yourself to receive it. Your desires work exactly the same way. The version of reality where you're already living your dream life exists right now. It's not somewhere in the future. It's not dependent on circumstances changing. It exists as a complete, finished reality in the quantum field, waiting for you to tune into its frequency. And how do you tune in? Through the feeling, through the assumption, through dwelling mentally in the state of the wish fulfilled. This is why gratitude is so incredibly powerful. When you feel genuine gratitude for something you desire as if you already have it, you're broadcasting the exact frequency of that fulfilled desire. You're living in the end result emotionally, and that emotional state is the tuning mechanism. I remember working with someone who wanted to heal a relationship with their estranged daughter. For years, they had been trying to figure out how to make it happen, what to say, when to reach out, analyzing every possible scenario. Nothing worked because they were operating from lack, from separation, from the current circumstances. When they finally shifted to living in the feeling of reconciliation, to giving thanks each night for their restored relationship, to imagining conversations filled with love and laughter, something remarkable happened. Within 6 weeks, completely out of the blue, they received a message. Not because they forced it, not because they manipulated circumstances, but because their inner state had shifted so profoundly that the outer world had no choice but to rearrange itself to match. The person they had been longing to hear from reached out with warmth, with openness, with a desire to reconnect. The relationship was restored, not through struggle, but through alignment. This is the power of persisting in the invisible. You don't need to see the path. You don't need to understand the mechanics. You simply need to remain faithful to the state you wish to experience, and the universe will orchestrate events, people, and circumstances in ways your logical mind could never have conceived. Think about nature for a moment. When you plant a seed in the ground, you don't dig it up every day to check if it's growing. You don't doubt the process. You don't panic when you don't see immediate results. You water it, you provide the right conditions, and you trust that beneath the surface, something magnificent is taking place. The roots are spreading, the life force is building, and at the perfect moment, growth breaks through into visibility. Your manifestation works exactly the same way. The moment you plant the seed through your mental imagery and feeling, the creative process begins, but it operates in the invisible realm first. It must take root in consciousness before it can appear in form. This is why so many people fail. They plant the seed on Monday, and by Wednesday, they're digging it up with doubt, fear, and impatience. They're checking their bank account obsessively, refreshing their email compulsively, asking everyone around them if they see any signs of progress. You cannot do this. When you plant a seed in the ground, you don't dig it up every few hours to see if it's sprouting. You don't panic on day 3 because you don't see a flower yet. You trust the process. You water it. You give it sunlight. You protect it from harsh conditions. And then you leave it alone to do what nature designed it to do. Your subconscious mind works exactly the same way. Once you've planted your desire with feeling, once you've impressed it upon your subconscious with emotion and conviction, your job is to let it grow. Your job is to maintain the faith. Your job is to act as if it's already done, because in the invisible realm, it is done. But instead, what do most people do? They sabotage themselves with doubt. They contradict their own prayer. They say, "I am prosperous." And then 5 minutes later they're complaining about how broke they are. They affirm abundance in the morning and worry about bills in the afternoon. They declare health and then spend all day researching symptoms and expecting the worst. This is mental confusion. This is why your results are confused. This is why your life feels chaotic and unpredictable. You cannot serve two masters. You cannot impress your subconscious with wealth and poverty at the same time. You cannot plant seeds of health and water them with thoughts of disease. You must choose. And once you choose, you must be consistent. Neville Goddard said it perfectly. Do not dilute your desire with doubt. That's all doubt is. It's dilution, it's contamination, it's poison poured onto the seed you planted, and if you keep doing it, that seed will never grow. Not because the law stopped working, but because you stopped working with the law. Listen carefully. The time between planting and harvest is a test. It's a test of your faith. It's a test of your understanding. It's a test of whether you truly believe in the invisible world, or whether you're still addicted to what your 5 senses tell you. And here's what you need to understand. The universe is not punishing you during this period. God is not withholding from you. The infinite intelligence that created galaxies and heartbeats isn't playing games with your happiness. What's actually happening is that old patterns are dying. Old beliefs are being uprooted. Old emotional investments in lack and limitation are being released from your consciousness. Think of it like this. When you plant a seed in the ground, there's a period where nothing visible happens. The seed is actually breaking apart underground. It's dissolving its old form to become something new. To an outside observer, it looks like nothing is happening. It looks like the seed is dying. But beneath the surface, tremendous transformation is occurring. Roots are forming, energy is gathering, life is preparing to burst forth. That's exactly what's happening in your consciousness during this neutral period. The old you, the one who believed in struggle, who accepted limitation, who saw yourself as powerless, that version is dissolving. And the new you, the one who knows their divine inheritance, who claims their birthright, who walks in absolute confidence, that version is taking root. But you can't rush this process. You can't dig up the seed every day to check if it's growing. That's what doubt does. That's what impatience does. That's what constantly checking your bank account or your phone or your circumstances does. It interrupts the invisible process. It says to the universe, I don't trust you. Show me proof first, and then I'll believe. But that's backwards. That's completely backwards. Faith means you believe first. You accept the invisible reality first. You give thanks for the answer before you see it. You live from the consciousness of the wish fulfilled even when your senses scream otherwise. Jesus said it perfectly. Whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours. Not believe that you will receive it someday. Not hope you might receive it if you're lucky. Believe that you have received it. Present tense. Already done. Finished in consciousness. That's the secret that changes everything. When you truly accept something in your imagination, when you give it the feeling of reality, when you make it natural to your consciousness, it must externalize. It has no choice. That's law. That's how creation works. You're not waiting for permission. You're not hoping it works. You're not asking nicely and crossing your fingers. You're commanding. And the subconscious obeys. That's the difference between people who manifest occasionally and people who live in constant alignment with their desires. The ones who succeed understand this one truth. The subconscious doesn't care about your past. It doesn't care how many times you failed before. It doesn't hold grudges. It doesn't judge you. It only knows the present moment. It only knows what you're feeding it right now. So if you've been feeding it fear, doubt, and limitation for the past 10 years, that doesn't mean you're stuck with those results forever. The moment you change the input, the output begins to shift. I've seen people turn their entire lives around in a matter of weeks, not because they discovered some secret technique, but because they finally stopped negotiating with their subconscious and started directing it. They stopped saying, I hope this works. They started saying, this is done. And here's what most people don't realize. Your subconscious is always listening. Always. It's recording every thought, every word, every emotional tone you carry throughout the day. When you say, I'm so tired of being broke, your subconscious hears, being broke. It doesn't hear the tired of. It just registers the dominant feeling and the repeated phrase. When you say, I don't want to be alone anymore, your subconscious hears, alone. It doesn't process the don't want. It locks onto the image you're creating. That's why affirmations work, but only when you do them correctly. You can't just repeat words while your heart is full of doubt. You can't say, I am wealthy, while visualizing your empty bank account and feeling the pit in your stomach. The subconscious responds to feeling, not just words. It responds to conviction. So when you affirm something, you have to feel it as true. You have to embody the state of already having it. Not someday. Not when the conditions are right. Now, this is what it means to live from the end. Because your subconscious mind doesn't care about your logic, it doesn't care about the evidence your physical senses present to you. It only accepts what you impress upon it with feeling and conviction. I remember working with a man who desperately wanted to heal his relationship with his estranged daughter. They hadn't spoken in over 3 years. Every attempt at contact had ended in arguments or silence. He would tell me, I want to reconcile, but every time I think about reaching out, I remember all the hurtful things she said. I remember the fights. I can't help it. I asked him a simple question. When you think about your daughter, what do you feel? He answered honestly. Hurt, rejection, anger. And there was his problem. He was impressing his subconscious mind with the very feelings that perpetuated the separation. Every time he thought of her with hurt and anger, he was commanding his subconscious to create more experiences that would justify those feelings. I taught him to do something radical. Every night before sleep, he would imagine receiving a phone call from his daughter. He would feel the phone vibrate in his pocket. He would see her name on the screen. He would feel his heart swell with joy and relief as he answered. He would hear her voice, warm and loving, saying, Dad, I miss you. Can we talk? He would live in that scene until it felt absolutely real, until tears of gratitude rolled down his cheeks, until he could feel the texture of the phone in his hand and hear the emotion in her voice. For 3 weeks, He practiced this faithfully. And he did something even more important during the day. Whenever thoughts of the old hurt would arise, he would gently redirect his mind back to the feeling of that reconciliation. He refused to dwell in the old story. On the 22nd day, his daughter sent him a text message, just 3 words, "Can we talk?" They met for coffee. They cried together. They healed together. Today they speak every week. Was this coincidence? Was this luck? No. This was law. Immutable, dependable, universal law. That's what made his work revolutionary. Not because he was claiming we could wish things into existence like magicians, but because he was revealing a law as reliable as gravity, yet one that worked times upward times instead of down. The law of consciousness. You see, gravity pulls everything toward the center of mass. It's predictable, measurable, constant. Drop an object anywhere on Earth, and it falls. Every time. No exceptions. Murphy was saying there's another law, equally consistent, equally measurable in its effects. Consciousness creates conditions. Not sometimes. Not for special people. Not when the stars align. Always. For everyone. Without exception. And here's the part that rattled the foundations of conventional thinking. This law operates whether you believe in it or not, just like gravity doesn't care if you understand physics. Jump off a building while denying gravity exists, and you'll still fall. Keep thinking poverty thoughts while denying the law of consciousness, and you'll still experience lack. That's what Murphy meant when he said, "It is done unto you as you believe." Not as you hope, not as you wish, not as you affirm, while secretly doubting, as you times believe, asterisk. As you actually accept in the depths of your subconscious mind. Think about someone you know who always expects the worst. Who walks into situations already convinced they'll fail. Who meets new people certain they'll be rejected. Who applies for opportunities while mentally rehearsing their disappointment. What happens to them? Exactly what they expected. And everyone nods and says, "Well, that's just bad luck. That's just how life is for some people." No, that's law in operation. They're not cursed. They're not unlucky. They're not victims of a cruel universe. They're demonstrating, with mathematical precision, the law Murphy spent his life teaching. Consciousness creates conditions. Their consciousness of failure created conditions of failure. Their consciousness of rejection created conditions of rejection. Their consciousness of lack created conditions of lack. Not because the universe is punishing them, not because they don't deserve better, but because law is law. It responds to what times is asterisk, not to what we think times should be asterisk. And here's where Murphy's teaching gets really interesting, because if this law is as reliable as he claimed, then it should work both ways, shouldn't it? If consciousness of failure produces failure with predictable consistency, then consciousness of success should produce success with equal reliability. If consciousness of lack produces poverty, then consciousness of abundance should produce wealth. If consciousness of illness produces disease, then consciousness of health should produce healing. And you know what? It does. Every single time. Without exception. I remember a woman named Susan who came to me years ago. She had been diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. The doctors told her it was progressive, that she'd be in a wheelchair within a few years. And when I met her, she believed them. Completely. Her consciousness was saturated with the idea of worsening disability. But here's what I told her. And here's what I'm telling you now. Your diagnosis is not your destiny. Your current condition is not your conclusion. We work together to change her consciousness. Not to deny the pain, not to pretend the symptoms weren't there, but to shift her fundamental awareness from illness to health. Every morning, before getting out of bed, she would spend 15 minutes in a state of feeling herself as healthy. Not hoping for health, not wishing for health. Actually experiencing the consciousness of complete wellness. She would feel herself walking easily, moving without pain, living with energy and vitality, and she did this with such conviction, such absolute acceptance, that her subconscious mind had no choice but to accept it as truth. Within 3 months, her inflammation markers dropped significantly. Within 6 months, her pain had reduced by 70%. Within a year, her doctors were calling it spontaneous remission. But it wasn't spontaneous at all. It was the direct, inevitable result of changed consciousness. You see, your body is not separate from your mind. Your physical condition is not independent of your mental state. They are one continuous expression of your consciousness. When you change your consciousness, you change your chemistry. When you change your awareness, you change your cells. When you change your beliefs, you change your biology. This isn't mysticism. This is the fundamental operating principle of life itself. And it applies to everything. Not just health, not just wealth, everything. Your relationships are expressions of your consciousness about love and connection. Your career is an expression of your consciousness about work and value. Your entire life experience is a perfect mirror of your predominant consciousness, which means you have more power than you ever imagined. This power isn't theoretical, it's practical. It's available right now. You don't need to wait for permission. You don't need special credentials. You don't need anyone's approval to begin reshaping your consciousness. Right now, someone is sitting in a job they hate, believing they're trapped. But they're not trapped by the job, they're trapped by their belief that they have no other options. The moment they begin to impress upon their subconscious the idea of fulfilling work, the idea of valued contribution, the idea of being appreciated and well compensated, their outer circumstances must begin to shift. It might not happen overnight, but it will happen, because the subconscious never fails to express what is genuinely impressed upon it. I've seen people transform impossible employment situations, not by fighting, not by complaining, not by blaming their boss or their company or the economy, but by changing their inner conversation. By refusing to accept the verdict of current conditions as permanent reality. One man I knew was convinced he was unhireable. He had been rejected so many times that rejection became his expectation. Every interview was just another confirmation that nobody wanted him, until someone helped him understand that his consciousness of rejection was creating his experience of rejection. He began a simple practice. Every night before sleep, he would imagine a prospective employer saying, "We'd love to have you on our team." He felt the handshake. He heard the warmth in the voice. He experienced the relief and joy of being wanted. Within 3 weeks, he received 2 job offers. Not because the job market changed, because his consciousness changed. Your subconscious doesn't care about your resume. It doesn't care about your age or your credentials or your work history. It only cares about the impression you consistently make upon it. Change the impression, and you change the expression. This is why 2 people with identical qualifications can have completely different career experiences. One struggles and feels undervalued. The other thrives and feels appreciated. Same skills, same market, different consciousness. When you change your inner belief about abundance, opportunities that were always there suddenly become visible to you. That job posting you would have scrolled past catches your eye. That conversation you would have avoided becomes a networking goldmine. That idea you would have dismissed becomes your breakthrough. This is what I call divine alignment, when your consciousness matches the frequency of your desire. Let me share something powerful with me. A psychologist once conducted a study where he asked struggling entrepreneurs and successful ones the same question. How many business opportunities do you see in your daily life? The struggling ones said 2 or 3 a month. The successful ones said 10 to 15 a day. Same city, same economy, same internet, different consciousness. The successful entrepreneurs had trained their subconscious mind to recognize opportunity. They had programmed themselves to see abundance. And so abundance appeared everywhere they looked. You can do the same thing starting tonight. Before sleep, when your conscious mind releases its grip and your subconscious becomes receptive, speak this truth. Infinite abundance flows to me easily and naturally. I am a magnet for prosperity. Money comes to me in expected and unexpected ways. Feel these words as you say them. Don't just recite them mechanically. Feel the emotion of already having what you desire. Feel grateful for the abundance that's on its way to you. Your subconscious doesn't argue. It doesn't debate. It accepts what you consistently impress upon it as truth. And here's where it gets really interesting. Your subconscious mind is connected to infinite intelligence. Some call it universal mind, some call it God, some call it the quantum field. The name doesn't matter. What matters is this. There is an infinite creative power that responds to the beliefs you hold. When you impress your subconscious with abundance, it begins to work with this infinite intelligence to bring circumstances, people, and opportunities into your life that match that vibration. This isn't wishful thinking. This is spiritual law. I've seen people manifest job offers within 48 hours of changing their inner conversation. I've witnessed businesses turn around in weeks when the owner finally released their poverty consciousness. The universe doesn't negotiate. It doesn't sit in committee meetings debating whether you deserve your desire. It simply reflects what you are. And right now, you're telling it who you are through every thought you think repeatedly, every feeling you entertain habitually, every word you speak consistently. There's a woman I know who transformed her entire reality by changing one simple phrase. For years, she'd say, "I can't afford that." It was automatic, reflexive. Someone would mention a restaurant, a vacation, a course, immediately, "I can't afford that." Those 4 words were her mantra, her declaration of identity. Then one day, she caught herself. She heard those words leave her mouth and something inside her recoiled. She realized she'd been programming poverty into her subconscious thousands of times over the years. So she made a decision. She changed the phrase to, "I choose not to spend money on that right now." Same practical outcome initially, but an entirely different consciousness. Notice the difference. "I can't afford" declares limitation, powerlessness, poverty as identity. "I choose not to spend" declares sovereignty, discernment, abundance with wisdom. One is victim consciousness. The other is creator consciousness. Within 3 months, her income had doubled. Within 6 months, she'd started a business that now generates more in a month than she used to make in a year. The external change followed the internal shift, always. This is what I mean by watching your words with the vigilance of a guardian. Your words are not casual sounds that disappear into the air. They're creative forces that sink into your subconscious mind and become the blueprint of your experience. When you say, "I can't afford this," your subconscious doesn't hear it as a temporary observation. It hears it as a command, an identity, a truth to be maintained. It begins to organize all your thoughts, feelings, and actions around that statement. It closes your eyes to opportunities. It dampens your enthusiasm. It makes you overlook possibilities that are right in front of you. But when you change that statement to, "I am discovering new ways to afford everything I desire," something entirely different happens. Your subconscious receives a new directive. It begins to alert you to opportunities. It heightens your awareness. It draws into your experience the ideas, people, and circumstances that match this new assumption. I want you to understand something profound here. This isn't about lying to yourself. This isn't about denying present circumstances. It's about refusing to give present circumstances the power to dictate your future. It's about speaking from the end result rather than from the current limitation. When you're sick and you say, "I am so sick, I feel terrible," you're affirming the very condition you want to change. You're giving it reality. You're feeding it with your attention and emotion. But when you say, "My body is renewing itself right now. Perfect health is my natural state, and I am returning to it," you're invoking the healing power within you. This is the secret the mystics have known for centuries. Your word is your wand. The universe doesn't judge whether your words are true or false by current conditions. It simply says yes to whatever you affirm with feeling. It takes your word as your wish and proceeds to make it real. So I'm asking you today to become conscious of the words you use most frequently. Listen to yourself. What are you saying about your health? What are you saying about your finances? What are you saying about your relationships? What are you saying about your future? Are you constantly saying, "I'm so tired, I'm overwhelmed, I'm stressed"? Then you're programming your subconscious to maintain those states. Are you saying, "Life is hard, nothing ever works out for me, I never get a break"? Then you're sentencing yourself to that experience. But the moment you decide to change your words, you begin to change your life. The moment you start saying, "I am energized, I am capable, I am supported by infinite intelligence," you activate entirely different forces within you. Your subconscious doesn't argue with you. It doesn't debate. It doesn't say, "Are you sure about that?" It simply accepts what you tell it as truth and begins to manifest conditions that match that truth. This is why affirmations are so powerful when used correctly. Not as empty repetition, but as sincere declarations of the reality you are claiming for yourself. I've seen people transform their health, their finances, their relationships, simply by changing the internal dialogue. A woman once told me she had been saying for years, "I never have enough money." And her life reflected that statement perfectly. Bills piled up. Unexpected expenses appeared constantly. No matter how hard she worked, there was never enough. Then she began to affirm daily, With feeling, I am divinely supplied. Money flows to me easily and continuously. Within weeks, opportunities she hadn't noticed before became visible. A promotion she thought impossible came through. Clients began seeking her out. The external conditions shifted because the internal command had changed. This isn't magic, it's law. The law of mind, the law of belief. You are always demonstrating something. The question is, what are you choosing to demonstrate? Lack or abundance? Sickness or health? Limitation or possibility? Your words are the seeds, your feelings are the water and sunlight, and your subconscious is the fertile soil that grows whatever you plant. So listen to yourself today. Really listen. What are you saying about your life? What are you declaring about your future? Because those declarations are not idle chatter. They are creative acts. They are setting forces into motion. And if you don't like what you've been creating, you have the power right now to speak differently, to affirm differently, to claim differently. Start small if you need to. Instead of, I'm so stressed, try, I am finding my calm center. Instead of, nothing ever works out for me, say, things are always working out for my highest good. Feel the shift in your body when you say these new words. Feel the relaxation, the opening, the possibility. That feeling is evidence that something real is happening within you. Your subconscious mind doesn't judge whether your thoughts are good or bad, true or false. It simply accepts what you repeatedly think and feel as instructions. It's like a faithful servant who says yes to everything you tell it. So when you consciously choose to speak words of peace, prosperity, health, and happiness, your subconscious begins to bring those conditions into your experience. This is why the ancient texts tell us to watch our words carefully. They understood something profound about the creative power of speech. Your word is your wand. What you decree with conviction and feeling becomes your lived reality. Now, I want you to understand something crucial here. This isn't about pretending everything is perfect when it's not. This isn't about denying your current circumstances or lying to yourself. It's about recognizing that your current circumstances are temporary and that you have the power to create new ones through the consistent direction of your thought and speech. When you say, I am healthy even while dealing with physical challenges, you're not denying the challenge. You're asserting the deeper truth of your being, the perfection that exists at the spiritual level, and you're inviting that perfection to manifest in your physical experience. Think of it this way. A sculptor doesn't look at a block of marble and say, this is just a rock and it will always be just a rock. No. The sculptor sees the finished statue within the marble and begins to chip away everything that isn't that vision. Your affirmations work the same way. You're declaring the finished form you wish to see, and the creative power within you begins to remove everything that doesn't match that vision. The key is persistence in feeling. You cannot say, I am prosperous once while feeling completely impoverished and expect miracles. But when you say, I am prosperous repeatedly, with genuine feeling, imagining what prosperity feels like, acting as though it's already true, then you set powerful forces in motion. Your subconscious mind begins to work on your behalf. It starts to guide you toward opportunities you would have missed. It helps you notice resources that were always there but invisible to you before. It changes your vibration so that you begin to attract different circumstances and different people into your life. This is the law. This is how it works. And it works for everyone who applies it consistently. You don't need to be special. You don't need to be chosen. You don't need permission from anyone. The power is already within you, waiting to be directed by your conscious mind. Think of it this way. Electricity doesn't ask if you're worthy before it lights up your home. Water doesn't question whether you deserve it before quenching your thirst. The sun doesn't shine only on the righteous. These forces of nature operate impartially, according to law. Your subconscious mind works the same way. It doesn't judge your requests. It doesn't evaluate whether you're good enough. It simply accepts what you impress upon it and works day and night to bring it into manifestation. This is both the beauty and the responsibility of this knowledge. The beauty is that your past doesn't matter. Your mistakes don't disqualify you. Your circumstances don't limit you. You can begin right now, exactly where you are, with nothing more than a decision to change your mental diet. The responsibility is that you must become conscious of what you're feeding your subconscious. You must stop blaming external conditions and recognize that you are the architect of your experience. I've seen people transform their lives in months after decades of struggle, simply because they finally understood this principle and applied it faithfully. I've witnessed healings that doctors called impossible. I've observed prosperity flowing to people who had known only poverty. I've watched relationships restored that seemed permanently broken. None of these people possessed anything you don't have. They simply learned to work with the law instead of against it. So where do you stand right now? What are you predominantly thinking about? What images are you holding in your mind as you fall asleep each night? What emotions are you habitually feeling? These questions matter because they reveal what you're creating. If you're worried about money, you're impressing poverty upon your subconscious. If you're anxious about your health, you're programming illness. If you're resentful about the past, you're binding yourself to more experiences that generate resentment. But the moment you shift your attention to what you desire, the moment you begin to feel the reality of your wish fulfilled, everything changes. The creative power within you begins moving in a new direction. Your subconscious doesn't argue with you. It doesn't question whether your new assumption is reasonable or justified. It simply accepts the dominant impression you give it and begins to manifest circumstances that match that impression. This is why forgiveness is so transformative. When you truly forgive, you're not just being noble or virtuous, you're withdrawing energy from an old pattern and redirecting it toward freedom and possibility. You're telling your subconscious mind, this person, this situation, no longer has power over my inner world. And once your inner world changes, your outer world must follow. I've watched people heal relationships they thought were destroyed beyond repair simply by changing their mental conversation. They stopped rehearsing the hurt. They stopped assigning blame. Instead, they began to imagine the relationship healed, harmonious, filled with mutual respect and understanding. And what happened? The other person changed. Not because they were forced to, but because the mental atmosphere had shifted. When you change your consciousness about someone, their behavior toward you changes to match your new assumption. This is the true meaning of turning the other cheek. It's not about being passive or weak. It's about refusing to mirror negativity, refusing to perpetuate a cycle of reaction. It's about choosing a different state of consciousness and holding to it until the outer world conforms. Now, here's where most people stumble. They try this once, maybe twice, and when they don't see immediate results, they return to their old patterns of resentment and blame. But transformation requires persistence. It requires you to remain faithful to your new assumption even when the evidence hasn't yet appeared. Think of a seed planted in darkness. For days, nothing visible happens. But beneath the surface, powerful forces are at work. Roots are forming, life is organizing itself. The gardener who digs up the seed every day to check its progress destroys the very thing he's trying to create. Your new assumption works the same way. Plant it. Water it with feeling and conviction, then leave it alone to do its perfect work.